So let's continue our conversation off the cuff, so to speak, about female nature. But first, there's a couple of things from the comments that I want to clear up that wasn't made clear. No matter what you say or how carefully you think you might say it, people will sometimes grab a word and make a thread out of it. Now, that particular word was bacteria, and referring to a bacteria as a female or female nature, which itself goes deeper into esoteric philosophy than I had intended for the video to actually go for a 6-minute video. I didn't want to make a whole hour video on esoteric feminine philosophy, which is a whole subject by itself. I mentioned when this was brought up that the default state in the absence of male is female. And that goes for biology, and that goes for the universe in general. The default state is designated as female. Much of your gestation, even if you're a man, is female until the testes become active and testosterone starts to influence your growth. Your initial state is female. We're basically alike. That's true for the animal world. That's definitely true for the insect world. The male state is always considered to be the active state, and the female is always considered to be the passive state. In esoteric religion and philosophy, the male or the masculine is considered to be light, and the female is considered to be dark. So we got into this discussion about the universe containing both masculine and feminine, which is true, but using the esoteric designation, the majority of the universe is considered to be dark matter, which some folks say 97%, and the visible matter or the physical world is only 3%, which is considered to be the masculine, the active part. So with that in mind, if you take that the universe is proportional and we take the saying, so above, so below, you would expect our biology to reflect the universe in miniature. So when we look at the sperm and the egg, which is basically creation on the human scale, it precisely reflects esoteric wisdom in the universe. The feminine or the female egg is immensely larger than the sperm, but the sperm carries the activity and the energy, and it's the activity and the energy from the sperm that fertilizes the egg and starts the process of creating a human being, which is also reflected in many ancient texts. So with that, we're going to get into some esoteric philosophy or Memphite philosophy with your indulgence. So the agnostics and the atheists out there, bear with me. I'm not trying to convert you. I'm just using this to clarify a point, and I'm going to bring it all together later in the video. So we're going to start with your basics, which is the creation story. And the creation story we're going to use is the one that has been copied in most religions all over the world. And you even find the symbolism in the Big Bang creation story in physics. So here we have a diagram of the creation story from Memphite theology. You know, the squiggly line at the top represents water or river, but that is to symbolize the water or the abyss in pre-creation. In Memphite theology, they call this the noon, which is spelled N-U-N. In esoteric philosophy, we call this the undifferentiated state. In other words, everything is uniform. Everything is precisely the same. There is no difference between all the particles that exist inside the water and exist inside the noon. The noon is dark and the noon is passive. So if you think back what we're just saying, what does the feminine represent? It represents dark. It represents passive. In the ancients, when a female gave birth, it came out of a dark place and it came out with water, thus the symbolism. So we designate this state with the feminine. If you drop down to the next level, you see a pair. This is what we call the differentiated state. In Menphite theology, Ptah, the hill, rose out of the abyss or the noon or the waters, and he became the male or the active state. He separated himself from the female. So now you have two pairs. You have the active and you still have the passive. It's still there. You just have another particle or another state. We call this on, off, light, dark. But Ptah is considered to be the light or the active. And together with the passive or the material of the universe, the synthesis of the two create, when you drop down the third to the third, a tomb, which is Adam. According to this philosophy, it was actually the synthesis or atom or atom that actually was responsible for creation. He spoke or banged or whatever the sound that you want to attribute it to him. And by naming the parts of himself, he created other particles or other gods. And together with him, they created the known universe or the physical universe. In this image, you can see Ptah as the hill supporting the other gods, Atum and the other gods, holding them up out of the noon and into the created or the active universe. By the way, if you don't believe the noon is or the universe is considered feminine, we still use the word noon, N-U-N, in a different connotation. N-U-N we use as none, which is directly taken from nu or the noon as female nature. Here's another example for esoteric Asian religions, the symbol of yin and yang. In the yin-yang symbol, you can see that the light force, the active force, the projective force is considered male. And yin is the dark force, the hidden force, the passive force is considered female. And as an aside, there's a little bit of the opposite in each, but that's what we call the mystic marriage, and in symbolism and also in psychology. But if folks want to endeavor, get deeper into that, they can drop me a note and we can dive deeper into that aspect. But that's out of the scope of this particular video. And the last image for this particular segment is the Kabbalah, which is esoteric Jewish mysticism. And we can see Menphite theology directly reflected in this particular diagram also. If you remember the first diagram I showed you, which is the one or the zero or the undifferentiated state, and then the separation, and then the synthesizing of the other forces in creation. And in this particular one with the diagram at the very bottom, or the 10, is represented as the physical world, which is the Malhut. That's another deep dive. If you're interested in that, drop me a note. I'll consider doing it. But like I said, I don't want to make this a religious channel. So according to esoteric philosophy, the masculine is the active created force in the universe, and the feminine is the passive dark force in the universe. The masculine takes the disorganized material, which is the noon, or which is the passive, and creates from that. Now, if we take this to the human situation, it is the men who are the active creative force in humanity. And our environment, which we call Mother Earth, is representative of the noon. It is the passive force from which we create our culture and our environment and our civilizations and societies. When we look at male-female relationships, men are the active creative force in the relationship, or the masculine is. The woman is the vessel through which we provide material, will, and creativity to fashion our lives, our families, and our children through. If we look back to the sperm and the egg, the man gives her the sperm, which is the active energy, the active force, and the female marries that with the egg, which is the passive force, representative of the noon, and together the man creates his offspring through her womb, which is the vessel. In Kabbalism, men are considered light and women are considered the vessel which the light fashions. I've heard many dating shows that say that the women take on the personality of the man that she's dating. She absorbs his energy, his personality, and his traits and make it hers. She takes the shape of what he fashions her to be. On the other hand, women are light hoarders. They feed off of attention. They feed off of light, whether it's positive or negative. Women or females feed off of attention. So when a woman's into you, this is the reason that she's jealous or upset when you take your attention off of her. That is her light that she needs to fill up her vessel. A woman without attention is an empty vessel. This is why women love dating sites. They love to absorb male attention or male light. This is why they wear sexy or provocative clothes. They are competing with other women for male attention and male light to get as much attention and light into their vessel. This is how they build up their self-esteem. This is why they like social media and social interactions, is because this is the light that they feed off of. This is the energy that they feed off of, without which a female will feel empty. There are very few women or females that live in solitude because their nature desires to be filled. You see that on Facebook, you see that on Twitter, Instagram, whatnot. They're trying to get their fix. They're trying to fill up their vessel with as much light and attention as they actually can. And when they can't get positive attention, they vie for negative attention. That's why most women are addicted to drama. When they can't get high quality light and attention, they'll settle for the junk food of light and attention, which is drama. Remember, attention is food for the feminine. She has to fill up her vessel. The same way that if she doesn't have children coming from her womb, she will adopt. But always her first inclination is to have that child, her womb filled up with a child. She wants that experience. If she can't get that, she'll adopt. And if she can't get that, she can't get children, what will she do? She'll adopt cats or dogs, and she will make them her children. Whereas men see dogs or animals as companions, women substitute dogs and cats for their children to feed her nature, to fill up that vessel that's empty, that empty place in her vessel, in her psyche. So as MGTOWs, if we understand this and we look at a woman from this lens and from this philosophy, then we can put women in their proper place. We can understand her underlying needs, her unconscious needs. It's something the pickup artist understands, even though they do it unconsciously. They don't really understand all the ins and outs behind what they actually do. It's just something mechanical that they've learned over trial and error. So is it no wonder in this modern era, with all the electronic communication, that women, Western women especially, have become attention addicts? They can get their fix to fill up their vessel with low quality energy 24/7. It's gotten to the point that women are suffering from what I call attention diabetes. They've gotten so much of attention that their bodies and their psyches cannot respond normally. They've built up a resistance to normal attention. So now it takes more and more and greater attention for them to get that same response or that same feeling. It's like a normal drug addict. It takes more and more of the drug to get less and less of the same experience that she had with the first man that she bonded to. So that's why when a woman that's ridden the cock carousel for 10 or 15 years no longer can respond normally to male love or male companionship. She's been desensitized to it, just like a drug addict that's been on the same drug for 15 years. So a man who's trying to take a woman like that, who has those traits, it's like fashioning a life or fashioning something out of used material. No matter what you do, no matter how good your skills are, the vessel or the material that you're working with is not as pliable as when it was new. So nowadays in this modern world, you have so many things tainting what would normally be a pure vessel: the electronic media, the education, the access to men, male attention, urban environment. It's no wonder that men have difficulty fashioning a productive relationship with the modern Western female. So by the time she reaches adulthood, you already have to look at her as tainted, and you have to make allowances for the vessel and the material that you're going to have to work with. So this one's gone a little bit longer than I expected, so I'm going to close it out here. If this is of interest to you, drop a note in the comment section. If you want me to go further, let me know. But thanks for listening. And thank you, agnostics and atheists out there, for bearing with me. I hope it was instructive, or at least gave you something else to think about. With that, I'll sign off.